Dota 2 fans, and welcome to the Beyond the Summit Series number 4 Europe Division. This is the Group C tiebreakers. The winner of these tiebreakers is going to move on alongside Vega, Elements, and Friends in towards the playoffs. So thus far, a couple of upsets, some notables: Escape Gaming, Ad Phenom, Kai Pete, Team Empire, all out of the playoff phase. Prodota, Fantastic Five, trying to complete the underdog story here and take out Virtus Pro. But for now, it's going to be MRP, Mike Loris, chronicling this journey with you. So hope you guys enjoy the Dota. We've got 3 BO1s coming your way, and possibly 6 if the first set is inconclusive.
Or could be 2 if we just have win-win, right?
True as well.
That'll be the most depressing result possible. Hopefully that's not going to be it. Hopefully it's a little bit more interesting than that. But, I mean, we just saw these two play like 2 days ago or something like that. The games were rather even outside of some kind of jank play from both sides and their respective losses of games. But the reason why these teams are here is because they all 1-1'd each other. So it's just a matter of who's feeling better today. I feel that probably these teams are about as equally skilled as you can get, but Fantastic Five gonna waste no time. Drow Ranger first, and you called it, but not publicly. So
damn it! I told Mike in Skype. Often people, when they do not get first pick, opt for picking Radiant side. So Prodota picked Dire, which means they're baiting the Drow pick basically. And Fantastic Five, they're a team that's certainly comfortable with it, but this is gonna mean more than likely that Prodota have a plan in mind to deal with this. So OD ban is a bit of an interesting one. It is something that they've run for Pingvinchek in the mid lane, but first phase is definitely some respect given over to Fantastic Five. Batrider still in the pool is definitely a consideration for Prodota, but the other hero that Kefka plays really well is going to be this Sand King.
Yeah, and Prodota did run the Sand King against F5, did lose with it. It was come with me 4 position, pure roaming Sand King, no Sandstorm, no passive jungle farming, none of that. So we'll see if they actually do give it to Kefka. I feel like that's probably the easiest thing for them to do. And I mean, because this is a continuation of a series from just the other day. I mean, we have residual bans like Shadow Demon. Not too weird to see him banned there, but Fantastic Five were running an absolute train on that hero, and you really don't want to be playing up against a Drow Ranger with Shadow Demon backup, and that's also to some degree why they decide to pick up the Oracle, just trying to eliminate those defensive heroes for that Drow.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up pairing it up with here. Oracle definitely, with Shadow Demon and Kunkka more than likely being first phase banned in almost every game in the series. One of the highest regarded supports in terms of this first phase. So Prodota definitely feel pretty happy with their opening. And Fantastic Five, I mean, there's no bones about this one. They're not hiding anything about this lineup. It's Drow Ranger lineup. They're picking up their cores early on. They're trying to shore up their lanes. Puck is definitely a hero who's going to benefit from that precision aura in the mid lane, and who's going to look to fight, group up and fight early on, take some towers down away from this Prodota lineup. So it's a BO1, and some teams would look at going into a Drow Ranger lineup or a team fight execution heavy lineup as a bit risky, but it looks like Fantastic Five, this is exactly their comfort zone, and this is what they trust in this sort of elimination format.
It is worth noting that the puck of Fantastic Five was outlaned pretty heavily by Prodota the last time they met up. I don't remember who Ping was playing though. I'm not sure if you do, but
it wasn't a Tinker.
No.
For some reason, I was thinking Tinker.
He played Shadow Demon in the Shadow Fiend in that second game. I don't remember.
Shadow Fiend, he had a really difficult time on.
Yeah, he just got crushed by everyone from Fantastic Five. But I mean, that is kind of relevant. It's also a puck with Drow Ranger base damage increase, so that's not to be ignored. The mid lane is pretty much all about that. Who gets the runes? Who has more damage? That's why we see Null Talismans picked up mid lane, not anywhere else really. So it's already looking like Prodota can't really depend on passively winning their early game. Sand King's a pretty good start. Undying's a little more of an aggressive start to winning your early game, and I like this mostly because it signifies that Kefka should be playing that Sand King.
Yeah, it was just looked it up. It was a Ping Timbersaw mid lane. There you go. When he laned him out. So definite potential for that pick as well. That's something that can get into the face of the Drow Ranger. The coil is a bit annoying, but other than that, they're a bit disable lacking in terms of Fantastic Five's lineup thus far. So that's definite possibility for them. There's also, of course, the potential to run this dual off lane with the Undying pickup now. And one way to set the timings back of a Drow Ranger lineup is to be pressuring her early on. So it looks like that'll be the idea, at least the idea that they're baiting here for Prodota early on. We'll see which direction they continue to go. But thus far for Fantastic Five side, they are on the Radiant, so the Roche advantage is not nearly as, of course, influential in this game because they're going to be over on the Radiant side with the Drow lineup. But this is a very typical opening for a Drow lineup here. Puck, Drow Ranger, and the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor, a very stable in-lane support. Also has great base damage for a support hero. So with the Precision Aura, can actually zone pretty heavily out of the off lane. So we'll see how they end up faring here. Likely going to go with the full defensive tri-lane. And actually they're going to pick up a bit of a greedy pick here in the Chen, who's going to show his presence in these lanes more than likely very early on with a couple of creeps rather than kind of AFK farming.
So just getting a lot of push. I mean, best of one, as you said, Chen is pretty much going to be that hero, but I'm a little bit more interested in this Luna pick for Prodota. Not exactly known to be a bulky hero. Yeah, she does have Oracle behind her. Undying Sand King as kind of like just meat shields for her to hide behind, but the range isn't really high enough to hide behind. Everyone from Fantastic Five do have a lot of really high operational range. They just attack you from far away. So this Luna is an effort definitely to go into the early game, kind of under this Fantastic Five timing. There is a point in the game where Luna will be a lot more powerful than Drow Ranger. That's very, very short timing, though. It's like the first 5-10 minutes of the game, when Luna, just with Lucent Beam, just by having everyone get a little bit more damage with this Lunar Blessing. They will have to try to push that a little bit more, because if she is not able to get a hugely advantageous start, then what do you do here as Luna? You have to depend 100% on being hit with your Oracle False Promise to live through the fights, and you also need the Sand King to land every single stun, because Prodota only have that one stun.
Yeah, Burrow Strike is going to be a major or a crucial component, I should say, of Prodota's fighting going forward. And with the Darkseer and the Chen, they have a mech and a pipe carrier for this early push that's going to be queued up before Fantastic Five. I felt like they could have gone a little bit more aggressive, maybe even pick up a Timbersaw in that 5th slot, but Darkseer and Chen is going to offer them tons of team fight potential, just with both of their ability to farm without having to necessarily lane and get up those early items and that early advantage. And as you mentioned, the Luna being perhaps a bit of a risky pick. Of course, Chen creeps are going to be there to be able to soak up the Eclipse early on. So False Promise not even necessarily going to guarantee that she gets off her full damage toolkit in the fight. There's also the Surge and all the control available to the Puck to kind of extract themselves from the fight while the Eclipse duration.
Wall of Replica versus Eclipse. Good luck.
I really like Fantastic Five's draft thus far. I mean, this is really nice for Prodota. You never really see a Mirana slip through to the 5th pick, but Fantastic Five seems like they weren't necessarily fully concerned with the direction Prodota was going. They were just going to shore up their plan, and that seems to have come together fairly well. They're definitely, a little bit susceptible to things like Caustic Finale, and a little bit later on the Starstorm going to kind of clean up the waves very quickly. But feels like at that 9 or 10 minute mark, they're going to rely heavily on Biver's Undying in order to stymie this push coming out from Fantastic Five.
Yeah, that's all about communication. Undying may be undying, but if he doesn't have everyone following him, then he just kind of gets out-kited. She gets picked apart by the Drow Ranger, by the Witch Doctor, and Chen right-clicks, which in this game will be doing quite a bit. It does seem like Prodota, with the exception of this Undying pick, not really going too far out of their way to try to deal with this Drow Ranger. I mean, the Undying is definitely a consideration pick there, but it does seem like for the most part they're just trying to run their own draft, which, if it wasn't up against a Drow Ranger draft, it looks like a pretty good kind of mid-game timing draft. Pretty standard stuff, a little bit of flair there with the Luna and the Undying and whatnot, but it does seem like they're not going too far out of their comfort zone, and
yeah,
I do like that to some extent, especially in the BL ones.
Yeah, definitely the CWM Oracle and the Kefka Sand King are super comfort picks, and those are things you want to lean on in these best of one scenarios. I haven't seen much of Garter Luna lately, but I assume as well that he's played the hero quite a bit. So we'll see how Prodota ends up faring here, but I mean it's rough when you lose the coin flip in a best of one format, and it looks like to this point Fantastic Five has certainly taken advantage of that. So these two teams vying for the final spot up against one another and Virtus Pro going forward. So 3 BO1s likely to come your way unless we have one team win 2 in a row. Stay tuned for this, guys. They're going to join Vega, Friends, in the playoffs alongside Elements as well.
Last pick, Darkseer, going up towards the top lane, is unfortunately going to be Darkseer into an Oracle, which kind of sucks. There's not, again, that much hold here, so as far as killing the Darkseer, probably not going to happen, but for sure Golden Star is going to have a little bit of a sticky time up towards that top lane. Can't quite get as much as he would like, and that does pose some problems, because if he's shut down just by 2 heroes, that means these 2 heroes down towards bottom lane will have all the more free reign. Biver Kefka. This is kind of an awkward combo. 2 melee heroes, they will just have to run at you. I hope that that's enough to get the kills, but land like 2 decays, suddenly everyone's at like 400 HP or something like that. It can get to be a very, very snowbally lane if F5 don't mind their positioning.
Yeah, name of the game for them is going to be to get some early levels. Burrow Strike, level 1, a little bit underwhelming. Just a decay, you know, without any kind of chase potential by virtue of having the Tombstone is much the same. So hopefully they can survive in lane in these early levels. That's where they're going to be threatened by the Chen as well as the Witch Doctor. So if that's the case, I do expect the lane to do pretty well. And as you mentioned, the Fortune's End being in the toolkit of this Oracle top lane is going to force more than likely Golden Star to be immediately towards the jungle on his Darkseer.
We'll see how much success Yol is actually able to get out of this. He is one of those heroes that if you may try to gank this bottom lane, you'd want to try to gank this bottom lane as Chen, but that could very easily end up backfiring. The Chen creeps later on will be quite nice as far as anti-arrow tech versus this Mirana, but early on, killing off this Mirana with Chen is going to be pretty hard, so I expect Yol to just be kind of passively farming. I expect everyone actually on F5 to be almost as passive as they can possibly get. They know that there is a timing here for Prodota, very slim again, but Luna's a powerhouse, Undying's a powerhouse. Chen doesn't really have any viable lanes to gank, so we'll see if Prodota can actually punish this. They're going to try to Burst Strike onto Illidan. Cast immediately goes down, but that's just with 1 Burst Strike, 1 hit. Illidan's almost dead. He's got to chug us out.
Yeah, they're going to take advantage as they do have this deep vision down in the jungle, so they will be able to know kind of when the Chen is going to be rotating over unless he's under the cover of smoke. So for that, in that sense, it should be a fairly opportune lane for Prodota, a place where potentially they can set the timings back of Fantastic Five.
And over towards the mid lane, looks like it is going to be pretty even for right now, but Mirana not exactly known for high base damage. Puck definitely has a higher just base advantage there, plus the damage is coming out from Precision Aura, so this mid lane is kind of on a timer. I don't expect Mirana to get that much help. This is what Yol can do for this bottom lane. Throw like Satyrs down here, just spam Shockwave. You can do the same thing with the Wild Wing, just to try to mess with these Prodota heroes because they're both melee. They can't do anything up against the Satyr Tormentor like ever.
Yeah, up in the top lane, Garter free farming, of course, and already putting a little bit of pressure into this tier 1 by virtue of the absence of the Darkseer. They should be able to bring this down fairly quickly and perhaps even quicker than the Drow lineup opposite them in the safe lane since they're up against an Undying. So that should bode well for Prodota. They can maybe make a rotation towards the mid lane thereafter and look to establish some sort of map control, get a bit of a gold advantage against a Drow lineup. Drow lineups are certainly ones that feast off being ahead, so this could be a definite potential here for Prodota to gain an advantage. Come with me with a haste rune. Forcing Golden Star out of the jungle is going to be a bit inconvenient for him, and since he's not in the top lane, the Luna really doesn't feel the effects of her support being absent whatsoever.
Oracle just doing what he can, and I do feel like he might be able to do something else if they really want to go towards bottom lane. Just maybe level 3. Get that level 2 Purifying Flames, because right now this bottom lane is starting to turn in favor of F5. Just additional damage, the fact that Witch Doctor does hit pretty hard just naturally, plus he's got the level 2 Precision Aura now. This duo of melee heroes on the bottom isn't really doing all that much. Again, maybe go for Golden Star up towards the top. Level 2 Lucent Beam, not that impressive though. I'll have to let him go, but you can see this bottom lane now not really applying any pressure to Illidan. CS-wise, he's going to probably get like all the rest of them from here on out.
And he's got 9 denies on the Drow Ranger, and that is really rearing its ugly head for this dual off lane. They're both currently sitting on level 2, and Kefka barely has eclipsed that mark. So we talked about, you know, the necessity of getting early levels on these two heroes, and they haven't really done so in spades. So Prodota, they could be hurting from this going forward. Fantastic Five kind of getting all they want early on. Penguin check though in the mid lane doing very admirably. It was a great creep block for BZZ at the beginning by Golden Star on the Darkseer. He had the lane up on his hill and Precision Aura, and yet Penguin check 17 CS to the 22. So holding his own here. Yeah, rotating down towards the bottom lane. And with the creeps here, Biver's going to soul rip up. Hadouken, no mana for it. So he will be able to walk away for the time being. But that's going to force him out of lane. And once again, you know, the Illidan Drow Ranger essentially free farming here. 19 CS, but perhaps more importantly at this point, the 11 denies really hindering the ability for Biver and Kefka to be disruptive.
And Yul's not really hamstrung by this either. Like, yeah, he's using all the Satyr's mana to actually harass instead of clear creep waves and whatnot. So you'd expect him to be a little bit further behind, but, you know, level 3 is still pretty darn respectable considering, you know, Oracle's the same level, Kefka is below that, the Undying is also below that. He's really not investing all that much to cripple himself in order to cripple this bottom lane. And now I think the bottom lane, unless they get a smoke gank off or like a Moonlight Shadow gank off, is pretty much just dead in the water. Yul may be off lane right now, but they need Illidan or Armen to get just grossly out of position if they're actually going to make this happen. You can see Kefka now handling the lane by himself, but Undying up towards top lane, we've established that they probably don't have enough just control to kill off this Darkseer. He needs to be hit with an Eclipse, or maybe set up with 2 Lucent Beams. The cooldown is low enough for that sometimes, but they're going to take a tower. That is kind of nice, but it's the level disadvantage that I'm concerned about here for Prodota.
Yeah, definitely so. And, you know, once again, we talked about this tower likely to fall early, and that is certainly a nice pickup for Prodota, but it really doesn't hinder the lineup of F5 all that much. They'll still be able to take their the equivalent tower more than likely over in the Radiant safe lane, and should be able to hit their timings fairly well. The Darkseer, he's always good at jungling innately, so losing his lane this early is not going to be all that much of a concern. And as we speak of it, Illidan going to group up with his squad down in the bottom lane. Kefka, only level 1 Burrow Strike currently at the moment, doesn't really have the capability to defend this tower all by his lonesome. He's going to dodge the cask with the Static Storm there. But this tower is going to be forfeit just about 30 seconds after the Radiant one went down. Kefka looking for an opening here. They should be able to find RMN. The Burrow Strike range is very short at level 1, though. Arrow is going to connect on the more important target on Illidan. They'll leap forward as well. He's trying to be recalled by the Chen, but they will get him down. Jump forward from BZZ, though. Illusory Orb's going to connect on 2 coils there as well to bring down Kefka first. Starstorm coming through. BZZ Fairy Fire's up. He's just fine. Fairy Fire coming out from Ping as well. No pounce for 16 seconds. More than likely, he's going to end up dropping here. Illusory Orb comes through. Couple more right clicks. BZZ finds the return kill. They will get Illidan, but they lose their mid laner. They lose Kefka as well. Tower goes down, and Illidan, he's right back up from the grave, and they can get back to work here. So Prodota, they get a nice kill on the Drow Ranger, but they end up losing their tower. They're a bit late to defend it, and they'll lose 2 heroes for it.
This contingency build from Kefka, this kind of safe build from Kefka really hurt him there. If he did have that level 2 Burst Strike, he was level 3 at the time, then probably they set up a much faster kill. I mean, they definitely set up a much faster kill, and that probably means that the Mirana gets out of there alive. But having gone for 1-1-1 means that, well, he still has that really bad, terrible, in fact, level 1 Burrow Strike, so has to walk so far in, even with the luxury of Moonlight Shadow. They are kind of fortunate that that arrow hit, otherwise they would have just been wasting all their heroes' time. But for F5, I mean, they kill off the Mirana. That already is a huge win. They haven't really lost any momentum from that. Losing the Drow Ranger isn't a terribly huge deal at this point, since you just have to make sure she gets to that level 6 mark, gets to the level 7 mark, maxes out the Precision Aura, and then she really doesn't even have to show her face with the draft that F5 have crafted together. She can just split push if she really wants to, and that's usually pretty darn safe. So Prodota, I like the attempt, but the end result's definitely not good enough. They need to do something very similar, except get better results. This smoke might just be it, because this time they have Eclipse with Lucent Beam level 4.
BZZ. They're going to drop it down. They force out the phase shift, and then the Eclipse immediately blows him up. Not quite worth the Arcane Rune there. Arrow not going to connect. Some Decay is there, though. Gust onto 4 from Illidan. Should keep them at bay. Biver does not have the mana. He does have 7 stick charges, though, and he will be able to drop down the Tombstone. Illidan, a little bit low. Golden Star going to come through. Vacuum Wall is there as well. On the backside, they pick off RMN with the Burrow Strike. And it looks like with the Moonlight Shadow, they'll at least be able to reset. Illusions from the Wall of Replica will deal with the Tombstone, however, and that is a good amount of teamfight potential eliminated off the board. No Eclipse, no Tombstone left. Heroes are respawning now. They need to be careful not to hang around too long. Kefka, though, Iron Taloning through the trees. Illidan nearby. TPs are inbound. BZZ's there. He's got his full toolkit available, and Kefka Well, think better of it. TPing back towards that mid lane where Yol is pressuring the tier 1.
Trying to take advantage of the fact that Chen TPing in is completely useless. But, you know, the end result for Prodota, that one is definitely just so much better than the last fight, and it goes very well for them. Killing off the puck, stopping his timings for Veils, Blink Daggers, and whatnot, that's incredibly important for Prodota. The Undying's tanky, everyone else in Prodota, their paper already, not to mention the fact once that Veil drops, they're just going to get crushed immediately by a puck combo. So it's a pretty nice win for them. Getting that secondary bonus kill onto RMN is, you know, kind of the cherry on top of that. But for Prodota, now they actually have a little bit of momentum. They actually have some levels on the Sand King. Level 5, so much better than level 3 on the Sand King. And man, when he's level 7, things are going to be just aces for Kefka. But he also has 1,000 gold. So Prodota are starting to get these components up that'll allow them to handle the all-in kind of drought-esque pushes that should be coming pretty soon from F5. Mech check on them. It's almost up on the darks here. That should be their timing. Get the mech, go push.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chen's going to have a little bit of freedom in terms of where he wants to go with his item build. Definitely Pipe seems like a consideration for him. But either way, as you mentioned, they'll have a relatively early mech up on the Darkseer. Not perhaps as early as you would expect with the draft on paper, but they will still have one in due time and definitely before their counterparts are able to pick one up. Dragonlance is going to come out soon as well for the Drow Ranger. She's about 800 gold away from that. For BZZ, so that'll be another nice siege tool that they'll have. But for now, BZZ and Yol, they're going to smoke up, look for something for free in the top lane, but they may run into almost the entirety of Prodota's lineup. And almost simultaneously, 3 heroes from Prodota are going to smoke and look to wrap around, perhaps in towards the mid lane, but there is no tier 1 top, so they're thinking of going top here. But the smoke, it may expire before they're able to get into the skirmish. They'll TP Fiverr over to the tier 1, and they may just run into Yol here. Efka, he's going to find him. They use the Moonlight Shadow, but they want the bigger target here in Golden Star. They'll find him during the surge, purge him off. Arrow is there. They'll get the Darkseer right before he picks up the mech as well. The Chen will be trying to take his creeps back. Glyph will ensure that they do not get the tier 1 down, and Prodota, with a well-timed movement there, will be able to salvage the deny on the tower, grab up a kill on the Darkseer just before he finishes the mech, and they'll also be able to defend mid lane.
That awkward moment when you're Chen, you're trying to walk, but you can't because everyone is moonlit around you and you're getting body blocked. They do go for, as you said, the better target. They do still get rid of their tower, but BZ in the mid lane taking a beating just by 2 casts of Come With Me. Arrow gonna filter through, will connect onto Yol somehow through all the creeps, but looks like it shouldn't really be all that much afterwards. But Prodota getting that deny is pretty darn large. They did get the deny, right? Yeah, Luna did get it. So more gold out of the pockets of F5. Illidan, is still doing pretty darn well as far as net worth, and pretty much everyone F5 doing about just as well. But as a Drow Ranger draft, usually you're going to be grouping up, which means, you'll get the towers for gold, but you won't get that much experience. And if you lose the gold, well then, of course, you're kind of in trouble. So Prodota taking a pretty good approach. I think they probably could have gotten both, though, if they just put the Oracle on the Darkseer and then the Sand King on the Chen, or just have the Sand King stick on the Chen. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, but at this point, it still feels like Fantastic Five. They're not as far behind as potentially they could have been with these last couple team fight losses. They will not be deterred. They'll group up once again. They've have the Dragonlance now, that siege tool ready for the Drow Ranger, and all the tier 1s eliminated off the map. So as the Radiant Drow lineup, this is where the game gets a little bit difficult. You either have to run the risk of being far in deep in enemy lines looking for these tier 2s, or go for the Roshan against the Dire Side lineup, who does have some pretty damn good team fight around the pit with a Sand King and a Luna.
Moonlight Shadow is coming up in just a couple of seconds right now. The mechanism is up on Fantastic Five. Looks like that kill wasn't really too bad for disrupting timing as far as what F5 want to be doing, but this is about time where Prodota want to be making aggressive plays themselves, not with the intention of killing off towers, more so for the heroes. If they keep using Moonlight Shadow just every single time it's available, Blink Dagger, Aghanims for the Sand King and Miranda respectively should be coming up at a pretty decent clip. And having lost only 3 tier 1 towers right now, I'm pretty sure Prodota are going to be okay with status quo. One of them even denied, so it does seem like Fantastic Five do have to get a lot done with this mechanism. There aren't really any huge timings coming up. Maybe the puck. 1700 gold, that can enable quite a few things. They do have the Dragonlance on the Drow Rangers, so this is about the perfect time for Fantastic Five to make kind of an extremely aggressive play. But as you said, Roshan is probably not what they really can do up against what Prodota have.
Yeah, the Moonlight Shadow has proven to be kind of the tipping point in this game thus far. Just having that ability to have the Moonlight and the Smoke and pretty much gain the advantage in terms of initiation at will has certainly resulted in some decisive wins here for Prodota. So we'll see if going forward they're able to continue that trend. But for now, yeah, it's hard to, F5 is perhaps hard pressed to pick what objective is best for them to go for. It really does feel like they need to eliminate at least a hero off the map before looking for one of these tier 2 structures.
And if F5 do end up with a very slow game, the Drow Ranger lineups usually just instantly lose. This isn't really a situation where they'll be doing terribly. I mean, they're still at a disadvantage for sure, but just having Darkseer, Puck, and Chen, like, the amount of, like, kind of versatility and sustain in team fighting they get from that, with the Drow Ranger and Puck kind of doing the damage, doesn't really mean the end of the world. Yes, they would rather be pushing, but they can afford to some extent to extend this game just a little while longer, mostly because they're going up against Luna, who's pretty much at any stage of the game extremely burstable until she gets some big Reaver item or something.
You have to feel, though, that Prodota are very happy with the current state of the game. I mean, Luna is completely free farming here for Garter, picks up the Helm of the Dominator early on, which, is great against all the physical damage. Now she's going to get a great stat value out of the Dragonlance as well, so it's going to allow her both to farm and fight early. I really think that there wasn't perhaps a better build for Garter in this game. You could consider going Dragonlance first and then into the H-Tom, but H-Tom allows her to stay on the map as she has, farm up. Top lane, it looks like Golden Star made an attempt at Kefka, but the Moonlight Shadow will keep him safe for the time being. And now, Warding on a mission, though. Come with me, in trouble. He's going to get coiled up and brought down, and maybe this is now the opening F5 needs to try and take a structure down, but it is 25 seconds only with the Oracle on the sideline, and they're missing their wall of replica, and Golden Star has to TP back to base, so their mechanism carrier walking out now to converge with his teammates, perhaps towards one of these lanes, but does look like just a clean pick here for F5 and nothing more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pick for pick's sake. That also, though, does, as you said, the Oracle's respawn timer rather low, the Puck's Dream Coil cooldown much higher. It also does reveal the Puck having gone for Blink Dagger, so Prodota will know about that. There's not that much counterplay, except for don't group up, which is what they're going to be doing anyway, but that does reveal the Blink Dagger. It's a very small price to pay, pretty much the hero you want to die in order to reveal a Blink Dagger. Also pop the smoke out from F5, so they eat a smoke, they see the Blink Dagger, and it really doesn't cost them all that much. Yeah, the Moonlight Shadow is still down, but Ping is closing in on that Aghanim Scepter. We'll probably have it by the time, maybe not, another Moonlight Shadow is coming around, but yeah, it does seem like for Prodota, as long as they're not being pushed, they are happy. Kefka's almost at his own Blink Dagger. Then for F5, pushing is going to be, well, pretty much a nightmare. Even with this Aghanim coming up on Chen, I don't really know if that's going to be swinging anything.
Yeah, Prodota have done a very admirable job to be able to recover from what was a failure of a lane in that off lane for Biver and Kefka. Not eliminating Kefka there in the top lane for Golden Star is, a costly attempt, as now he's going to be able to pick up this Blink Dagger 16 minutes in, in a dual off lane that essentially just failed, is very desirable here for Prodota. They are in a wonderful position overall in this game. Garter is very fat, to say the least, and everyone else in terms of levels is doing decently. At the least. I mean, you've gone for a greedy lineup with F5, a couple of heroes in the jungle. Of course, you're going to have a bit of advantage in that department, but as you're just a little bit more split up than Prodota was. But Prodota, they definitely have the wherewithal, and as you touched upon, to be able to stymie this push coming out from F5. And any Roche attempt for that matter as well. Under the cover of smoke, RMN will be able to get a ward down, but it's right under sentry range, unfortunately. And the immediate smoke now from Prodota, as RMN hides himself in the pit. He's going to cask onto the Wildkin. We'll see if they notice this. Looks like Garter does, but it's perhaps a little bit too late. Arrow going to go right into the Roche pit. With the Lunar Blessing, they'll be pretty quick at taking this down. Come with me, standing on the high ground. See if Prodota thinks better of it. They have the Fate's Edict to disarm him as well. They won't be taking all that much damage. Garter with the sustain provided to him by the Helm of the Dominator, and Kefka with the Blink Dagger that F5, may, infer that is here, but do not know, that's for sure, that this Blink Dagger is out just yet.
It's still incredibly risky for Prodota to be doing this, especially with paying just 400 gold off of that Aghanim Scepter, which would make the fight ensuing before or after Roshan just almost an insta-win for Prodota. Between that and a half-decent Epicenter, it'll be really hard for F5 to out-tank through that, even with the mechanism, even with Hand of God, which is, by the way, only level 1.
Jump forward, Burrow Strike onto 2.
Epicenter onto 2 as well, and with the Hand of God, they'll save them for a couple seconds, but Illidan still very weak. He can't really continue to fight. Now the Eclipse drops, not that great with all the creeps here, but still doing quite a bit to Golden Star. They'll take on the Undying only. And with me still alive, Garter still swinging onto RMN. And it looks like the Witch Doctor with the maxed out healing should actually be able to survive it, albeit barely. It's actually just a 1-for-1 until Garter goes up too high on the cliff side, and he'll go down in just a second too. Kefka looking for Burst Strike, forces the phase shift to BZ, which actually saves the Luna and stuns a couple as well. Huge Starstorm plus the Caustic Finale. Oh, F5, that was a little bit too close there for Prodota, but they get baited by a Luna of all heroes.
And there's the value from the stats right there. 14 stick charges at the end, keeping her alive. Dragonlance and the H-Dom to mitigate the damage coming in. And Pingvin check on the backside with a huge Starstorm. Kefka just kind of, as we've seen him do, on his Bat Rider, on his Sand King so many times, just straddling, outskirting the fight and constantly reinitiating for his team. And it really seemed to bode well for them. If the game looked hard a moment ago, it is going to get infinitely harder for F5 at this point, and they're going to find BZZ with a Burrow Strike. He barely gets the phase shift off, but he's going to catch a Starstorm and 2 Purifying Flames, and Come With Me will finish him off as Garter picks up the Aegis, and Prodota, they have a firm grasp on this game after the last couple of happenstances.
That was like a, Blink Dagger, Sand King, and a Dragonlance Luna timing, trumping the mechanism Blink Dagger of the F5 side. That's really bad beats there for F5, landing a 2-man Burrow Strike Epicenter, already dropping the Drow Ranger down to 100, 200 HP, and that is usually just going to be an instant lose territory for F5. They have to make sure the Drow Ranger is in the back at all times. They have to make sure that the Puck and Darkseer get the initiation off and actually make sure that initiation doesn't go onto the Drow Ranger, and they did play well. The Darkseer combo with the Puck was almost as perfect as it could have been, absorbed a lot of the Eclipse. But even with all that being said, having the Drow Ranger start the fight off crippled means that they just don't have enough follow-up damage. If they had her healthy enough to actually stick in the fights, maybe they could have gotten just a little bit more done there. But now things are really going off the rails because, Luna now has the Yasha up another 1300 plus the Aegis. And Mirana has the double Starstorm working with the Aghanim Scepter. And Come With Me has a freaking Shadow Amulet of all things. Yeah, this is probably the best case scenario for F5 right now where they're racing for towers, but this is really not a comfortable position for them to be.
Yeah, and speaking of comfortable position, and Shadow Amulets for that matter, there's a Shadow Blade up on Illidan, and whenever you're with a Drow Chen lineup and you're forced to opt for Shadow Blade, it's certainly not an ideal situation. This is a good trade in a vacuum, though. They'll be able to take out the Tier 2 for their Tier 1 bottom lane, but there's a team holding Aegis with a Luna in their bottom lane, so they're going to push pretty quickly as well, and they're going to walk up towards this high ground. It looks like F5 are going to try and mount defense, jump forward, vacuum onto 3, catch the wall as well. There's no follow-up just yet, though. And Fortune's End immediately going to purge off that Darkseer Ion Shell. Meanwhile, though, Yol, he's gotten a lot more damage done in the mid lane on the Tier 3 to Prodota side in the meantime, so they'll be happy with that overall. As the Chen, he could have at least contributed his Hand of God from distance. We saw in the last fight, Kefka was able to eliminate Hand of God and Mechanism almost right away by epicentering directly onto Yol. So they will, hopefully for the future and for their sake, have that available to them in the fight. But for now, they at least force Kefka back with the push impending mid lane. Still an Aegis, though, in hand for Prodota, and they're sticking around this bottom lane.
They have the wall now dissipating. That's going to be down for another minute, so Blink Dagger and Darkseer not all that useful here, and that's mostly just going to enable the Eclipse, so Garter's going to have a much easier time just pressing that button and hoping that it does a little bit of extra damage. For Prodota, though, this is still kind of risky to actually be playing like this. Yeah, they do have the Aegis. Yeah, they do have probably enough damage to bulldoze down this tower if there's no fight, but they could also just be going for the mid lane, which has all of its towers up for some reason. Garter taking a beating there from the Puck and is actually going to take a lot of damage now. False Promise will get him out of there, but he still may pop. Come with me, gonna try to heal him up. F5, unable to
It'll
give
be
chase.
fine.
He should be just fine. But there are mid lane towers. There's top lane towers to take, yet they're kind of just running headlong into a tier 3 that's staunchly defended while the Darkseer is pushing out the other lanes.
Yeah.
This is going to be a situation where they really do have to kill this tower at the very least. Otherwise, they just wasted, what, like a minute, 2 minutes so far?
Yeah, I partly agree that you just kind of extend your gold advantage. This team is extremely good at turtling, and it's not them that are on a burn timer. It's the Drow Ranger lineup. But Garter, he's going to get hit up. The Burrow Strike's going to come through onto Golden Star. Gusto onto 3. Big vacuum wall will take out 4 heroes. Aegis is one of them. Biver's going to die. And as well, Garter should drop here. And he is just down to the physical damage coming out from Fantastic Five. A beautiful initiation from Golden Star, even though Kefka tried to take him out of the fight early. And it's just Garter just simply not tanky enough on the high ground. They'll right-click her to death before the fight essentially even started. And kind of what we were touching upon. I mean, these two towers in the mid lane are low-hanging fruits with that Aegis, and you are not the lineup at 23 minutes in who is hard-pressed to be going high ground with that Aegis. You kind of can just extend your gold advantage, continue to draw the game out, get more farmed relative to your opponents, but that'll be a pretty big misstep for Prodota going towards that high ground, and they will end up losing the fight. Kefka gonna blink EP out, or blink out of the base here. I thought he was up near the rune, but either way, this is going to give some breathing room back to Fantastic Five here.
It's definitely not the way you want to find out that the enemy puck has a Veil of Discord. It does hurt a hell of a lot, and there's also like quite a bit of Wall of Replica value here. Just by copying a Luna, you get the auras, you get a very, very hard-hitting stat stacker. So this Wall of Replica, even though it is only level 1, despite Darkseer being level 13, it is going to be extremely relevant. Ping and check. Get caught by BZZ. Coil combo. Bring Ping down to half HP. Looks like if there was any one hero there, they probably could have taken down the Mirana, but that is Coil being traded for Moonlight Shadow. Not a terrible trade for F5. But yeah, for Prodota, they now pretty much give up the 2 mid lane towers, at least for now. Come with me. He's going to clear himself away from Illidan. Value there. Burst Strike. Epicenter onto Illidan. Already used the Gust. This is going to hurt. He's going to try TP out. It's not going to be successful. Oh, it is!
Wow.
He gets the wands off and he'll be just fine. That, I feel like that could have, I feel like that should have been doing more damage.
Yeah, Hand of God saved him, but either way, I mean, I guess it's an epicenter for a Hand of God, so relatively even trade, but definitely a kill that Prodota would have loved to have. Doraman, though, he'll be the one that they will get. He is way out of position here in the mid lane, and Ping will finish him off with a point-blank arrow to the face. So that'll at least stymie any thoughts of pushing for F5 for the next little bit. And they'll take this mid lane tower relatively easily here, as Come With Me will pick up the last hit. So that's a little bit of an influx of gold going Prodota's way, and perhaps more importantly, just further pushing back F5 from trying to continue to push in towards their base.
I mean, even after that whole Aegis fiasco, we're still in a situation where Fantastic Five, they're not really pushing as much as they would really like, so they are still kind of the ones that are under pressure right now. Prodota do have a lot more control. They'll typically have a lot more control over the Roche Pit, especially if BKBs or just more mobility items, more kind of healing sustain items come up on any of their heroes, and that is exactly what they're building towards. Yule's now on the Sand King to maybe get rid of that TP for next time. The Oracle, of course, has his Glimmer Cape. BKBs can be coming up, but Mirana with the Blink Dagger can make it so that next time it's unlikely that it's going to be a 3-man vacuum wall, just because Prodota have, at this point, a lot of operational range with all their heroes. Between the Leap and the Blink Dagger, Mirana has to be nowhere near the fight in order to contribute. So for F5, they have to somehow force Prodota to clump up. Usually that's going to involve baiting some sort of kill, putting the Darkseer out there, kind of leaving him to dry. It's kind of a risky way to play, but that's definitely, as these items come up from Prodota, the best way for Fantastic Five to win a team fight.
Manta Style also up on Garter. We've seen some very, very key, very clutch gusts come out from Illidan thus far, so that'll be nice for him to have to dispel that off. They'll have a set of Greaves at some point on Biver, so the self-dispel there, the double heal as well with the False Promise is also going to synergize there, so a lot of good items coming up for Prodota, and we've touched upon it many a times before. This team is going to be, just by composition, very good at turtling, so there's really no rush for them.
There's a Silver Edge on the Drow Ranger. I mean, Illidan's been farming in the background. Probably not mentioning enough of that. Silver Edge so far hasn't done, I don't think anything to anyone. Just like
Yeah.
the Shadow Blade that he's had, hasn't really done a hell of a lot. The damage debuff is gonna be nice. I don't think there's anything useful to break at all here. They catch a good angle on Kefka. He's gonna go invis with the movement speed, but Kefka can also go invis. I mean, Silver Edge is definitely a good item to have on the Drow Ranger, but it's also an item that you kind of want to leverage as soon as you get it.
Manta Style Illusions pushing in towards the mid lane, and it seems that Prodota have been very diligent about reacting across the map whenever Fantastic Five look to queue something up in one lane. So they've been able to kind of keep at least one lane at a time shoved out, and they have pretty good heroes to do so with the Mirana and Kefka's Sand King. So Prodota moving nicely in reaction to Fantastic Five, and you know, with a Chen who's got Ancients, they are a little bit static overall as a unit. Yo, speaking of the Chen, in trouble, gonna get burrowed up. Sandstorm is there behind him, and now jump forward. Waning Rift's gonna catch onto 3, but the mech is there from Biver, keeping them safe. Tombstone is gonna be dropped down. Golden Star now though, 3-man vac wall. The Death Ward gonna be instantly canceled by Ping Vinchek. They will end up getting the Oracle and the Sand King. Soul Rip gonna keep Garter relatively healthy. He's gonna get Waning Rift up though, and with that Veil, BZZ doing so much work. Garter, he's gonna be left for dead in the mid lane up towards the north. Ping Vinchek taken out, double kill for Illidan. 4 heroes on the sideline, and without their Eclipse, without their False Promise, without their Epicenter, this is a very docile looking Prodota lineup. So simply Yol being a little bit survivable there with the mech and the End of God, and the initiation potential just from BZZ and Golden Star proved to be enough to win that fight. And now 3 buybacks are available at this point. They have a glyph as well, but if they don't expend at least perhaps the Mirana here, it does feel like Elena Rax is gone.
Come with me's here. He will save everything. No, Raxes are gonna die. There's melee, there's range, and they're even gonna stick around and try to go for a second set. Illidan has that damage. 300 damage a pop on the Drow Ranger is nothing to shake a stick at. Kefka does still have the Epicenter. They still have the Eclipse. So they can make a defense here, Prodota, but they have to actually catch up to someone. The Dragon Fireball thing actually stopping Kefka's Blink Dagger. It looks like Prodota, they'll only lose the 1 set, but they have to expend the buyback on Luna. It is still extremely, extremely costly for them. And that just kind of goes back to the fact that Luna, her position in this game is really, really awkward. You don't want to Eclipse in that situation. Once the wall drops, the illusions are going to constantly be resummoned as they're destroyed. There are even neutrals in the area that can be absorbed by that, so they can't get that out. The Epicenter was not channeled beforehand because they thought that it was just, hey, a random Chen pickoff. And they probably otherwise would have been correct in some other days. Speaking of random Chen pickoff, they're going to jump on him again, and they'll kill him off. Hand of God is not going to save him for sure this time. 100% dead. But for Prodota, that's just like such an awkward place to fight. Like, you're in such narrow corridors, up against a Puck, up against the Darkseer, and you don't have time to set up beforehand. If that same fight happens in the middle of the lane, I think it goes a lot better for Prodota, but just by taking them in the jungle, they kind of set themselves up for failure.
Yeah, it's a really good reaction from them, though. If they're able to take this Roshan, that's a major acquisition for them. Jump forward from Kefka, Capsule Burrow onto 1. Vacuum Wall's not that good, but they should be able to bring down Biver. He has to solo mech as he's alone in the pit and almost dies. Illidan, though, he's disarmed by the Fate's Edict, and they should be able to just bring him down with right clicks here. Purifying Flames will finish the job, and one of the zombies actually picking up the last hit there. Biver's still alive on this Undying, will be able to soul rip up. The wall of replica illusions cannot finish him off, and F5, they're a little bit too antsy to get in here. Five are going to be healed up, and they are very low now. Kefka on the west side, though, with the Epicenter, trying to keep Golden Star at bay. He will be successful in doing so. RMN, though, he drops down the ward, and they will get Garter in the pit. BZZ bashed up by Roshan. Come with me, vacuumed back into the wall. Will have to be forced to false promise himself. Biver gets a big decay off. Kefka with a 3-man burrow strike, but they don't have the follow-up damage to finish these heroes off. And now Ping off to the south is going to be chased down by Golden Star. Roche still alive, 20% HP. Illidan is not here, but it doesn't feel like they'll need him. They'll buy back, come with me, TP him in immediately. Kefka jumps through, 4-man, Burrow Strike is there, but he's dead to the Waning Rift. Aegis on the floor. RMN is going to pick it up in a panic. And now the buyback for Come With Me essentially wasted. Eul Scepter up in the air is Biver's Undying. He's going to be veiled up, vacuumed back. Waning Rift, Mech TP attempted, not successful. And Prodota at the Roche pit. It looks like they have actually crumbled and may just end up losing this BO1 by virtue of that fight. They'll march down the bottom lane. Illidan, fresh from the grave, is going to join them soon. Has 3,500 gold on his person as well if he wants to pick up an Eagle Song. Pingvinchek in the mid lane being stalked. He has a Gust available. If he's able to take this Mirana, that would be a huge kill. He'll get it off with the break. A couple more right clicks will finish the job. They'll get the Mirana. He bought back in the top lane. Cannot come back for this fight. And now the Chen creeps up onto the high ground. Yule Scepter on BZZ. They're looking for the Burrow Strike. Phase Shift is there. Lincoln Sphere picked up from the Courier as well. For BZZ, and Illidan standing up on the high ground with the Lincoln Sphere buff on him. Cass gonna bounce through the back lines, cancel any sort of initiation potential. Kef gonna go through. He's gonna miss the Burrow Strike. Now a jump forward. Vacuum Waning Rift onto 2. Kefka's gonna drop. He has no buyback. Garter in trouble. He's gonna be False Promise up, but they're simply retreating here. Come with me. He's gonna be right click down. The Eclipse is gonna be there, but there's just a plethora of units to soak it up. The False Promise tick will kill him off. GG. The towel is thrown in. Fantastic 5 with simply no inhibitions going for this Drow lineup from the first pick in the draft are going to take the victory in this first tiebreaker of the day. Mike, where did it all go wrong here for Prodota?
That was like the most messed up Roshan fight I've ever seen in my life. First of all, the wall of Replica is like walling them off from Roshan. I don't know why. I guess Ping just like jumps in, try to get to the Roshan faster, but that ends up creating an illusion of himself. Luna has to walk through that, and Luna illusions hurt a lot as well. The puck is there, and there's no one really to handle the puck because the Sand King is using Epicenter Burrow Strike on a Darkseer, who, by the way, has Pipe, so it does like no damage. So the Sand King is indisposed, trying to go for a Darkseer that'll never die, while the rest of the heroes are at like 100 HP, trying to fight Roshan and Puck at the same time, who, by the way, is being healed up the entire time by Witch Doctor and his level 4 Voodoo Restoration. Between the Pipe and the Voodoo Restoration, Prodota just have no damage.
Yeah.
Plus, they have no health to begin things. If they just called it quits, gave up the Aegis to Fantastic 5, would probably still be casting this game. But because they made the extremely greedy play to stay there, try to rush it down, they just end up insta-losing.
Yeah, really nice initiation from Golden Star there in the pit. And it seems as the Yole pickoff just was not enough. You mentioned kind of the lack of damage. That seemed to be the glaring shortcoming in the lineup. With the Undying pickup, they just did not get enough pressure early on. And then thereafter... it was hard to get Garter into the fights and get a lot of damage done with his Eclipse with all the units to soak it up. So really well drafted in the last phase there by Fantastic 5. Picking up the Chen, picking up not only that, but the Darkseer into an Oracle, just knowing, you know what, we're going to get guaranteed farm, guys. We need a mech carrier, even though he's not going to contest the lane. We'll get our items up, we'll hit our timings, and we'll try and fight as 5. And they did that very well. No one standout player for Fantastic 5, but they'll do it as a lineup here. They'll take the first game, guys. They're going to move on to face Virtus Pro coming up next. Stick around. If Fantastic 5 take out VP, they will be on towards the playoffs alongside Vega, Friends, and Elements. So stick around, guys. MRP, Mike Lars here, BTS EU Series number 4. Tiebreakers going to return shortly.